And Mike, aka Franchise, I gave him that name way back.
That's what I was going to say, Keith. You know, he's most famous because he's the reason everybody calls me Franchise.
On today's Find the Balance Friday edition of the Odd Coaches Podcast, Dr. Adams and Coach Francis interview Lamar Barrett, former college basketball coach and current NBA scout. Lamar discusses his career as a high school and college basketball coach, shares insight on his job as an NBA scout, as well as sharing insight into the college recruiting process. Welcome to today's show. Dr. Keith Adams is the president of the CKA Save Project, a nonprofit organization designed to assist student athletes and the people who work with them through educational and professional development. He is a career academic and athletic leader with close to 30 years of experience on the high school and college levels. He has won numerous championships and epitomizes professionalism. Coach Mike Franchise Francis is one of the most successful football and basketball coaches in the state of Maryland. He too is a career academic and athletic leader with close to 30 years of experience on the high school and college level and is self-admittedly a little rough around the edges. Both men have mentored countless student athletes, teachers, and coaches using their unique methods and approaches to leadership. Both men also share a unique and special friendship that was cultivated often through their unique perspective of life and leadership. Dr. Adams through his extensive educational background and Coach Francis through his life experiences. Can these two men share a podcast without driving each other crazy? Welcome to the Odd Coaches Podcast.
Greetings and salutations and welcome to the Odd Coaches Podcast. I am your host, Dr. Keith Adams, and with me today is my tag team partner, the Shad Gaspar, the late great Shad Gaspar, to my JTG and Crime Time, Money, Yay, the icon, the showstopper, the main event, and the reason why we are here, Coach Mike Francis. And Coach, how are you this taping morning?
I am well this taping morning. How you doing, sir?
Man, I am wonderful because we might actually get some research done because our crack 0.5 staff is sitting in front of me right now.
That's all.
And on this Find the Balance Friday episode, it is somebody very special to both of us. Mr. Lamar Barrett, someone who has gone back as far as we have. I think it's going on 30 years. So Lamar, first of all, thank you for joining us. And how are you doing this morning? It's been too long, my friend.
Yes, it has. Good morning to both of you guys, man. You're right. Dr. Adams. I got to call him Dr.
Man, you know you are never going to call me Dr. Adams. So I don't even know why you faked on that.
And Mike, a.k.a. Franchise, I gave him that name way back.
That's what I was going to say, Keith. You know, he's most famous because he's the reason everybody calls me Franchise.
That's another story for another day, man. But look, when you guys first started this, I was excited just to see, where you got when you guys started to where you are now, and so I'm excited about being on. Anytime you get a chance to talk sports, life, you can bring those things together, man. It's an awesome combination.
Yes, sir.
Man, that means a lot coming from you. So, Lamar, we want to take this first segment and just give you a chance to talk about your coaching career and background. Man, how did it get started? And what's going on with that? Please share that information with our audience.
Man, it started, almost 25 years ago now, the coaching part. I had played collegiately, at an HBCU at Elizabeth City State University. And I finished up, had an opportunity to stay at my alma mater to take a college job, like right out of college as an assistant. Turned that down. Didn't think I wanted to be a coach. I didn't even know. I was like, everyone else is telling me you're a captain, you're a leader, you're a coach. I didn't see that. Fast forward, after a couple of years, I get called back to my alma mater, to see if I would be interested again. When I look at it, and at the time there was a new coach in place. He decided to go in a different direction because I hadn't played professionally. I was still playing, but I wasn't playing professionally. I wasn't coaching. And then a light bulb came on and said I wanted to coach. And so I decided, I thought the best way being, being new to the area, and I would say new, but living in the area for the first time, even though I was up here every summer, my mom lived here, for years. I said the only way I thought I could get into coaching was to go and be a teacher. So I decided to get into teaching. It was two places that's one that I interviewed, Fairmont Heights, and we all know George Wake, who's an outstanding guy, and then also at Oxon Hill. But coaching wasn't what I was looking for at the time. I get interviewed at Oxon Hill. So Ron Curtis, who's assistant principal at the time, former college coach, he was coaching the county as well. He said, man, you should probably coach and get into it and I'll talk to the coach. I'm looking at your resume. You played like you might want to coach. And I was like, man, that'll sound great. Put me in touch. Christine Johnson, who was the athletic director at the time at Oxon Hill. She thought the same thing. And then I meet Billy Lanier. So we all know Billy Lanier, a.k.a. Willie Lanier to franchise over there. But I meet him. He told me, I don't have anyone on. I don't need anyone on staff, And so I was like, okay. So I was, I thought I was going to be shut out. He said, well, give me your resume anyway. Gave him my resume, and a couple of weeks later, I go in the gym and I'm playing with the players. And I'm 25 at the time. So I'm still in great shape. And I'm in there and I'm like, and he saw me playing and how, when you play and you get older, you always a leader. You're teaching at the same time that you're playing. And he thought that was cool. The kids kind of interacted. And from there, he's like, hey, I might have something. And I got on his staff. I was fortunate to work with him for 6 years. I probably got fired 25 times. And the luxury of Billy and our relationship, and I can go back to the first time. He intimidated me the first time. He was like, hey, this is my program. I do this, I do that, or we do this, I do this. And so I don't really need a lot. And I remember coaching in my first game, JV. He made me the JV coach. And we scored 100 in the first JV game. And so we're playing the varsity game. I'm like the youngest guy on staff. Everyone on staff is, 10, 12, 15 years older than me. I'm the fifth guy. And y'all guys know we had like 6 coaches on the bench. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
So I'm the last one down. We're playing against Byron Leftwich at HD Woods. That was our first game. And it's close game coming down the stretch. And I want to say something. I'm like, man, I need to, I want to make an adjustment. Like, we're not doing this right. And I didn't say anything. And Billy turned to me after the game. We ended up losing by 3. And Billy said, man, you had something to say. I said, no. I said, no. He said, no, you had something to say. What was it? And I told him. He said, don't you ever do that again. If you have something to say, you say it to me, or I'm going to fire you. Right? So from that point on, he moved me to the front. He was like, I want you to be up front. I became basically his top assistant. And from then on, he kind of forced me into not coaching JV anymore, which, I love being on the sideline. He's like, you can be my varsity assistant. And we had a relationship where I tell people all the time, Keith and Mike, I was fortunate to work with a guy who said, I love practice. One of the best practice guys I've ever been around. And that's talking college coaches as well. The game, what we were good is, he was like, you're good. You see everything on the floor that I don't see. Mm-hmm. Making substitutions and seeing all this stuff. During the game, you can control a lot of that. So you telling me what I need to do. Well, so our working relationship, man, it was perfect. 6 years, 4 years when we went to the state championship game, won 2, lost 2, had an unbelievable run in those 6 years. 18 kids are going to play Division I, a few kids to play Division II. And so it was great, but I knew that college basketball was for me. So in 2003, I got an opportunity to go to Central Connecticut State University. I was there for almost 2 years. From there, I spent 9 months at New Haven University. Sounds like I did some jail time. Maybe that's what it was, but 9 months I was there. And then I had a chance to, with Rob Kennedy, with the hoop group. And Mike Rice was trying to convince me to come back to run it. We had all been at hoop group for a long time as coaches. But now it was like, no, I need you to run and be the elite director. I spent 2 years there, 3 summers, got back into college coaching, got a chance to go to Brown University as a top assistant. That doesn't happen for a HBCU kid. And so I was in the academic realm. From Brown, I had a chance to come back to the DC area, work at American University for 3 years. And then I also left after those 3 years. After 2013, I had a chance to go with Jeff Jones to Old Dominion University until 2016. We had an unbelievable run there. Program that came from a tough year before we got there to going to the NIT semifinals to playing in the championship game. And then I had a chance to go to Hofstra from 2016 to 2019, where we had, incredible years there as well, won the league a couple of times. And then, it was something now, and we'll get to that point. But for the last 4 or 5 years, the last 2 or 3 years before I'm doing what I'm currently doing now, I kind of almost started making an exit plan. And we'll kind of, I know we'll talk about that, but that's kind of my coaching career, where it started to where it got to in 2019.
Coach Franchise, go ahead and jump in, my friend.
Everywhere you've gone, you've won. Have you ever thought about, did you ever apply for any head coach positions in that time? Like was that ever on your mind? I know you were a great assistant. We all know Willie. We all know the relationship. We all know even every school you've been at. But have you ever thought about, do you ever apply for a head coach position?
I never applied, Mike. I thought that I had a plan, though. I said I got in coaching college at 32. And I was like, hey, by the time I'm 40, I definitely want to have a job, right? And that 40 years, it came real quick. And it was like, okay, 45. I never really applied. I kind of had a couple of calls, but nothing happened from there.
Lamar, one of the things that you said really resonated with me because I worked as a high school coach for my old high school coach. And it was the first conversation we had was the same thing you said. Look, if you're not going to talk, then you do me no good. You do me no service. Fast forward to Hood College. One of the reasons why Tom Dickman hired me was because I would talk to him in a way that you need to have conversations on the court. And knowing you and Billy, and shout out to Billy, man, it's been too long. Let's try to figure out something to do just to say hi to each other. I saw the dynamic firsthand, and that's what's needed. Conflict inherently is not bad. People run away from conflict, and I salute you as in, we're boys, but man, it's okay to say no. Put him in, have that 30-second whatever, and then go in the huddle, call the play, run the play as it is, and then afterwards at the bar, I told you should have done it. So, Lamar, anything you want to speak on about that before we close this first segment?
Well, it's interesting you say that because, Billy's wife at the time, she's, come to the games and she was like, man, you and Lamar, you guys argue all the time. He's like, y'all don't like each other. And he was like, no, he said, it's totally opposite. I trust him enough. There's going to be some things that I do that he doesn't like. There may be some things that he say that I just don't agree with. But he told her, he's like, no, our working relationship is great. And we need that. And I'll go back to, it was a prime. I'm going to go to an example, man. We're playing. This was the days when the regionals was at Largo High School. At PG Community, the regional semis and finals. And we're playing Eleanor Roosevelt at the time. And Eleanor Roosevelt, I think that was the year that they had great sides when they had Eddie Basden, Delonte Holland, and they had Delonte West.
Yes.
So
Killed us in the summer league. Don't. Some of my players who listen to this will have some PTSD on that.
So we're playing, and in the middle of the game, I said, Coach, we're not rebounding the ball well anyway. How about we get some speed on the floor? Let's go small. He's like, are you crazy? Like, we're already getting killed on the boards. And I was like, yeah, but if we put 4 guys around Mike, who guarding these guys? So we went, at the time, we went 4 guards on the floor, small, and it changed the game. But before Billy decided to go with it, he said, man, if this don't work, I'm firing you. Like, this is doing the game, right? And that was one of those moments. It worked. We win a regional championship. And then, we talked about it and we laughed afterwards. But he was like, man, I don't believe this. But that was the relationship we had. Yeah. Is like you said, he had the confidence in me to probably give him the right answer sometime. And sometime it didn't work out. But for the most part, I thought it worked out for the most part with us two.
And speaking of working out, this is a wonderful Find the Balance episode, and we'll be right back after this short break.
Why should student athletes use the CKA SAVE Project academic and athletic consulting services? Over the past 15 to 20 years, colleges, universities, professional sports teams, business organizations, and others have increased their use of consulting services to improve their decision-making processes and results. Over the same time, the athletic and academic landscape has changed for high school and college student athletes as the NCAA has raised initial academic eligibility requirements for student athletes while decreasing the number of transfer restrictions. Former college student athletes have noted that they were academic and athletically unprepared for the rigors of college. Let the CKA SAVE Project's close to 30 years of academic and athletic experience help guide student athletes to increase success as we work to help student athletes achieve the goal of obtaining a college degree. For more information, contact Dr. Keith Adams by email at cka@ckasaveproject.org.
Welcome back to the Odd Coaches podcast, and in our Find the Balance Friday episode, we have our longtime friend Lamar Barrett with us. And Lamar, you've got a lot of projects and things you're doing in the fire, and as our YouTube viewers are seeing, you got Unmasked back there. Talk to us about your current work and your current projects.
Yeah, so Keith, after 16 years of being a college coach and 6 years of being a high school coach, and I knew I've always wanted to be in the NBA in some form. And I'm not talking about just playing, when you were a younger kid, but it was always I want to be in the NBA, whether I'm assistant coach. And then I started looking at scouting, and I can remember 2015, I go out to Oklahoma City, and we're recruiting a kid. And while I'm in town, I decided to go and sit down with, I reached out to Troy Weaver, as we all know. He was assistant GM at the time. He's with the Detroit Pistons now as a general manager. But I actually got a chance to speak with a young man that was the director of scouting. It was training camp. It was actually Billy Donovan's first year in Orlando. They had training camp going on. So I just got a chance to speak with the young man that was director of scouting. And they had a position open, but they were about to fill it. But I wasn't looking to make the jump then. I just needed to pick his brain. And he sat down with me for about an hour, and he explained, like, do you want to go into scouting? Do you want to go into at the time it was the D League. And at the time, if guys got into the D League as a coach, they weren't moving up as much. They were just staying put as D League guys. And then he said, but that trend is going to end up changing. And once they went to the G League, it did change. Now you got guys who are in the G League who are now head coaches in the NBA or their assistants in the NBA. So I thought scouting would be the thing, naturally what I could do. If people have no idea, they think scouting and recruiting is the same thing. For what reason? I don't know what that is. They tie everything in basketball together. And so I started reaching out to individuals that I knew in the business, told them I thought about wanted to get into scouting. What were their thoughts? And they were all like former college coaches, like Tracy Webster, who's now with the Dallas Mavericks. who's a longtime coach. Orlando Early, who's with the LA Clippers now. He was with the Memphis Grizzlies, who's a longtime college coach. I started, I talked to Aki Collins, who now is back in the business of coaching, but he was with the Oklahoma City Thunder. So I talked to those guys and said, man, what are y'all thoughts? Like, I'm trying to make this transition. And they said, listen, college coaching is awesome. You love it. You live in the dream, as everyone says. But they said, listen, you come over here on this side, you're going to be living life. And I was like, living life? They said, yeah, like you get a chance. Your schedule is kind of set, but you get more time to spend with your family. You can you can make decisions. Even though you're on the road, like you're going to be at home most days. You're working from home. And so I was like, wow, that is something, that I'm very interested in. And so my first year out, I ended up scheduling to go to Las Vegas Summer League. I'd gotten up with some individuals who were running these, at the time, services with the NBA. And I had a chance to go out to Las Vegas Summer League for 10 days in 2019 and do some evaluating there on the non-first round draft picks. Because everyone who's a non-first round draft pick, you might be playing Summer League with somebody, but you might be on a team somewhere else come the fall. So I did a lot of evaluating there. And then from there, I was at Chris Paul Elite Camp because not only the top 20 high school point guards came in, the top 20 college guards came in. I was at, Steph Curry Select Camp, which was the same thing a little bit. Guards come in, college guys work. I was at Nike Skills Academy, which they bring the top kids in the country in out in California. So I was going to those type of things in July and August, evaluating, doing reports on those kids who are prospects for the upcoming year. And then come around the fall, I go out to the Olympics out in Colorado, where they bring in all the top kids from 9th grade, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th grade. You had a chance to evaluate them. So you're seeing all these kids who are potential pros early, right? So that's kind of what I jumped into. And then 2019, full fledged, I got a full schedule. I think I did 80 plus games my first year, and I was like all over the place. I mean, I had a schedule that was set from November when the season started to March, and then we ended in the pandemic. I remember the last game I was at that I evaluated was the CAA tournament, CAA semifinals, and I was supposed to go back out to Vegas for the Pac-12. I had already seen the Mountain West and the West Coast Conference, and so I came back to do the CAA, supposed to go back out to Pac-12. It hits the pandemic, shut it down. We're not going back out anymore. So, didn't do anything, but you still had to get ready. People don't realize, people forget this. The draft was supposed to be in June. The draft ended up being, October that year because everything was pushed back. And then season right back on top of you in 2021. Wasn't going out as much, but it was more of, you could only go out in 2021 if schools were allowing fans in. And so I did a lot of stuff remote that year. I may have gone to one or two events, but for the most part, I was working at home. And like I said, you're scouting, you're evaluating, but 70% of my job is intel. That's what people don't understand. Like, yeah, I can go and evaluate all the players I want to. I can tell you how good he is, but I about to have that information on that kid. I need to be talking to the not the head coach as much certain time, but that assistant, the athletic trainer, the academic advisor. I'm going back, the girlfriend at times. Like, it's so many people. Like, when you're going into drafting a player, you got to have all your I's, you got to have I's dotted, T's crossed, because at the end of the day, that owner wants to know all the information, or the front office wants to know all the information they want to on that kid. So, yeah, I look at a lot of games. I evaluate. I take notes. Yeah, is he good enough? Not good enough? People don't understand. Like, when I come out, everybody, you want them to be their NBA prospect, but like, there's so much into that, Keith and Mike. It's Are they draftable?
Mhm.
Are they a summer league? Are you going to draft them? Are they a G guy? Are they a draft and stash? Are they a summer league guy? Are they an exhibit 10, which I'm going to bring them to camp just to see if they can make the roster? I get so many things when you're looking at these players that you have to look at and figure out and determine, because I'm not just trying to draft 60 guys. You're trying to find way more than 60 guys out here.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of what my original, that's my project. Oh, that's what I'm doing. That's basically my job right now. And then with that, pandemic comes along, and I'm sitting around. I'm on a million Zooms. This like, it opens your eyes. Like, you guys started, you become so much more creative with the pandemic hit.
Yes,
You think I'm similar to you. I was thinking about doing a podcast, and it was about sports. It was about I'm a big, and you guys know me. I'm a big facts over fiction.
My God.
I'm not if it's I'm stats to the I'm you gotta come with me. I'm not the guy who sits in the barbershop and listen to people and I'm gonna run that. No. If you say it, you gotta come up
Back
with
it up.
information.
You gotta back it up, bro.
You gotta back it up, because I'm coming at you, and people don't understand that. Like, in franchises, like, y'all will say something, I look at it and I be like, nah. I'm telling you, like, I think I threw something out, like, whether it was Bob Cousy or something, and I'm like, he shot 37.5% from the field.
Right.
So when you gotta, come with some stuff. So I thought about doing that. Like, that was my stat, facts over fiction. And it sounded good. And I was like, okay. But then I'm on these Zooms, and it became a thing. Like, I'm listening to all these coaches, what they're going through. I'm like, man, I went through this for 16 years. Right. Then it became, it's all started. I'm on a Zoom. Guy by the name of Cam Daly was running the Zoom. Actually, one of the assistant coaches who I was his mentor. He was speaking on the Zoom, and he asked me to come on to hear him. And I was like, okay, so I went on, I listened the first time, nothing happened. Then I get invited back through someone else, good friend, Marlon Gill, who's at Binghamton now. He says, hey man, Phil Handy is speaking. Phil Handy, who's assistant coach with the Lakers, skill development guy, one of the best in the business.
Yes,
he was speaking on the Zoom. So it was like only a few people that's supposed to have been on the Zoom. Somehow I made it onto the Zoom.
Good.
And we're on the Zoom and guys are talking. And at the end, and I actually said, Phil, how is your son doing? Because I knew Phil when he was coaching AAU basketball with 94 feet. So I had known Phil way before the NBA days. You know what I'm saying? So and so then so we're talking, and questions started flying at me. Like, guys was like, hey, so what happens if you're on a staff with someone and you guys, you work together, but you really don't get along, blah, blah, blah. And I start like spitting information. And in the chat Zooms, you put your information in. And I'm quoting these people, as I'm talking, I'm getting text messages sent to me like, yo, man, you spitting that fire. That's real game. We don't need to be hearing about all what guys have done. Like, we need to hear the real inside. So that's how Unmasked, I was like, oh, wow, you know what? That's what I should do. Like, go behind the scenes of college coaches so that people get it and I can educate them. So it was created for like the basketball fan that wants to know the behind the scenes activities that go on as a college coach. So for that young aspiring coach who has no idea what college coaching is, they think it's, you know what they think it is? Let me put on my shiny suit.
Oh, yeah. You gotta have the gear, Lamar. Gotta have the gear.
And I get 2 pair of shoes, right?
There you go. That's what they think, right? So it was like, no. We're gonna give you the inside story of what really goes on, in the career. And so I started reaching out to some of my friends that I knew. assistant coaches. I didn't want to do head coaches.
Right.
I wanted the people. Head coaches get everything. They get all the love. I wanted people to know these assistant coaches. So I started reaching out to guys. Hey man, would you come on if I decide to do this podcast? What do you think? And guys said, yeah, I'd love to come on. Right. So I remember the first person that I had on, and his show wasn't the first one to come out, but was Rasheem Davis.
Oof.
And he always kills me to this day. It was like, I was a guinea pig. You sacrifice, because when I first started, you got to grow in this business.
Yes,
and
yes, indeed.
You got to. So I was okay, but there was a lot, and I had some people that I reached out to and was like, I would send it to them before I released it. What's your thoughts? And they was like, man, hey, this is actually really good, but I would do this, I would do that, and so I listened to them, and then from there, man, it just became so natural of doing this unmasked. And when I first started, it was June 1st, 2020. And when I started, it became, you know what? I was like, man, I want to get as many guys on as I can. Right. So I started, I was doing 2 a day, and I did a week, but I would not. And because the pandemic was going on and some of them wasn't going in, I was like, nobody, I'm taking no shows over the weekend. So I take 10 shows per week. I did it for 8 weeks straight. I had 80 shows between June 1st and August 7th. And I had so much content that I actually shut it down for a couple of months because I was releasing them every 3 days, 4 days. And I had so much content, it was booked through January 31st of 2021. Wow. And so I shut it down for a couple of months, and then I started back up in November. And I still built, content that I'm still running. I still have people now that I put out, but I had done over 140 plus shows. Like, wow. And then I started dipping into not just college coaches, but let's unmask. I did Jared Greenberg, he's with NBA TV on TNT. Oh, let's go behind the scenes of a sideline reporter or anchor. Let's go behind the scenes of one of my former students is a 5-time Emmy Award writer. She's she produced shows, right? So, or like I had a guy student was a photographer. Like that's when you start learning things. Like I'm going behind the scenes of a photographer, and he has like Megan Good. He has what's my man name? Anthony. Was Anthony? I can think of. Holly Robinson Pete. So he had these. He was flying out to LA doing like photography. I'm like excited about it. But I had 4 or 5 entrepreneurs. We all know Curtis Simons because he was one of the guys. You know what I'm saying? He had Curtis because Curtis had he had his own network. Yep. HBCU Go Network. So I wanted to go behind the scenes of that. And so more than 150 some guests, but 140 some assistant coaches. And that's how Unmasked came about. And it's crazy because when we first started, it was none of this. And my wife was like, well, let's get this in the background. Okay. Then it was like, let's get your own shirts. She started coming up with this stuff. Like, I remember buying 5 shirts from her friend, right? And now I go on and I started wearing Unmasked every time I was on the Zoom. And guys were like, Unmasked, man, what's that about? Hey, can I get one of those shirts? So I'm like, sure, you can get one of those shirts. And then they were like, no, I want to buy one. And I was like, buy one? So they said, no, we don't want it for free. We want to support what you're doing, support your cause. I'm like, but I'm not even selling these. So so I started, the merchandise, it was shirts. And then guys were like, what about, you got long sleeve shirts? Yeah, I get you long sleeve shirts. Then they was like, what about, man, I'm waiting for hoodie season. And I was like, hoodie season? Like, they was like, yeah, coach, hoodie season, man, you can rack. I was like, so when I started doing merchandise, I didn't do it like, I didn't do it to make money. I did it because I'm probably like I said, I don't make money off of it, but I like to get my brand out there. Like Unmasked, I'm a brand now. And people stop and stare and they're like, Unmasked, and you wearing a mask. So like, it's kind of less shock with it. But that's how Unmasked became Unmasked, because I had coaches, I had family and friends who were like, they were stepping out like, yo, I got to have that. You know, they were asking me that the stuff that I bought or the stuff that people were wearing is because, I mean, I had females asking me, do I have tank tops and all this stuff? I mean, I was like, if you want it, I can get it. You know what I'm saying? So connected with one of my former players who was my starting point guard, 2002. He has his own business. He actually bought one of mine, and I allowed him to start doing it. So I kept it in. Like, he's like, look, coach, I love your stuff. And he started doing the work for me. Aaron Parsons, I mean, I love him to death. If I say, hey, Aaron, I got an order of 150, 200, he's like, coach, I got you. You know what I'm saying? So it just worked out. Unmasked took off. And even from that, guys, I built what's the game plan for a young lady. She's an assistant coach at Johns Hopkins. She didn't play college basketball. She didn't coach college basketball before. She was wanting to get into business. We created what's the game plan under the Unmasked umbrella. Look, we're going to create this platform. You're going to bring in, you don't know anybody, but I'm going to reach out to all the female women coaches I know. We're going to bring them on the show, and we're going to create a forum. And so that became a spinoff. Like, and so I'm having fun with not only the scouting, but Unmasked, because I probably got 30, 35 people I'm mentoring. So it's like, my wife thinks I'm crazy because I'm not getting money off. You're a consultant. You like, they call you for everything. And I'm like, yeah, but I can't charge my friends. And she like,
don't say that too loud.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can.
Watch it.
So that's how Unmasked came about. And then from there, it started being, you know, man, listen, with the pandemic, you don't get out as much. Like I talked about earlier, your creative stuff, I probably go to bed almost 3-4 o'clock every morning, even though I'm up and sometimes I'm doing work, but I'm always thinking of new ways to, you know, like what can I do new for Unmasked to catch even more people's attention? I sat around the holidays or something, and that's when we asked about one of the projects. And I was like, okay, I've done the giving back, you know, school supplies to students, you know, schools, through one of my foundations. I've given, you know, I've done where giving out scholarships. I've done where I've had it where, you know, feeding the homeless. I've done it. I've done things like turkey, you know, having a turkey drive, Thanksgiving, or tour drive at Christmas. So I just thought about one thing that I could do. I didn't realize how, I'm telling you, being in coaching for 16 plus years, or 22 plus years, I wasn't a big hoodie guy, but I didn't realize how popular hoodies were.
Yes.
So I ran with it because I always liked it. I was a zip up, regular jacket type of guy, right? But I would only wear hoodies because it was given to me. And I said, you know what? And I started doing some search on hoodies, and I seen some other people, they were doing the hoodies for the homeless project and things like that. So I said, well, why wouldn't I do it here in DC? And I you know, I always run it by, you know, my wife one, or I got a small team that I just, before I put anything out, I talk to them. And I was like, hey, what do y'all think about this hoodies for the homeless project? You know, whatever people buy, I will match, or Unmasked will match what they purchase. And so from there, man, I had 200 and something people who either bought or donated. So I had to match what they bought or donated. So when I ended up sending out hoodies, I partnered with the organization here in DC, and I ended up taking you know, so many hoodies to, I mean, it was a huge number. And they were like, wow, this is huge. And the hoodies are nice. You know, they was like, we don't get this. And so that's why I started the hoodies for the homeless project. When I first started before Thanksgiving, it was good. And then somebody was like, oh, you still got it going on? And I was like, nah, you know, they said you should. So I did it up to Christmas. And so on December 23rd, I took all the hoodies. I think December 22nd, I took all the hoodies over to the place, and they were excited. And people were still asking me, "Are you still doing it?" And I was like, you know what? It's going to be cold all winter. Like, why not? And so that's what my big project has become, the hoodies for the homeless. I always say, if you want to, like, whatever you purchase, we match it. And I had some coaches that come in, unbelievable college coaches, friends, to donate some tremendous amount. I mean, I had, like, my hoodies were $45, but people, like most people, like, they would give 50. Like, I was like, hey, if you want a hoodie yourself, it's 45. If you want to just donate, it's $50. And like, I had people donate from $50 up to $900. Like, wow. a childhood friend of mine he was a teammate of mine, actually. This will be the last thing I'll talk about. I hadn't seen him in 30 years. We've talked because both of our fathers had passed away like weeks apart from each other. I reached out to him when his father passed away, and so that kind of opened our relationship back up, and I was like, hey, I know what you're going through. And then from there, he actually reached out to me and said, hey man, I would like to help with the project. I told my sons about what you're doing. I showed them the video, and they were like, Dad, can we help out? And so he was like, send me the link to your and I'll send you a donation. And I looked up, and there was a $900 donation. He was like, purchase 20 hoodies for it from my son. My son wanted that. And I was like, wow. You know what I'm saying? So people like that. But college coaches, there were some college coaches that I'm not going to name names, but I'm going to say this. There's some great guys in the Atlantic 10. That's what I'm going to say. You know what I'm saying? So,
Mike,
I was happy about it.
Mike, with all of this going on, I mean, our friend, yes, fans, we like to say that we're talking to our friends. That's why you, as Kelly, our producer, says, you can feel the joy. Guy from the neighborhood, so to speak, high school coach, college coach, NBA scout, developed his own podcast, and from that, stretching out and doing some other things. Mike, anything you want to add before we close this segment, sir?
It's great to see his progress, of course, and being there from long time ago, like being friends with him forever. The biggest thing my dad used to say all the time is you respect somebody for their consistency, and Lamar has been just that. He's never, ever wavered who he is. And yeah, we had them 2 a.m., 3 a.m.'s conversations at Travis' dorm, and it was look at him. And it was always about facts. It was about how many assists did he average? No, he averaged that many. Like, it was always that. But again, it's great to see where you're going. And I'm listening to your progress. I'm mirroring where we are right now. How you talked about having 140 shows and developing and keep stacking the content. Having a team surrounding you. Like I see you talked about ordering clothing and merch. We just did that last week. So we're on our way. This morning I was researching a banner at FedEx for like you got, I'm going to get so he can put behind him right now. See what he got behind him right now?
I'm still low budget productions, baby.
We try and get one of them 3x5 banners for about $100 from FedEx, and he can just hang it up back there for the shows. And and I'm gonna get one that we can hang up back here, But yeah, again, you're missing a lot of great people, and I'm just writing a list on who our potential guests are because our relationship with them as well. And I appreciate everything you're doing and how you turn what you're doing and your passion into so much more. To hear the mentoringship, to hear the helping the homeless, and we all are involved in community outreach like that, and it's amazing to hear it.
All right, and fans, it's a lot to digest. So we're going to take a brief break and come back on the other side as we continue our conversation with Lamar Barrett on the Odd Coaches Podcast.
Dr. Keith Adams, president of the CKA Save Project's book, Finding the Balance, My Personal Journey to Academic and Athletic Success, is now available for purchase. The book serves as both a memoir of Dr. Adams' 30-year academic and athletic career, as well as an instructional guide to assist student athletes, parents, coaches, teachers, and administrators navigate through the challenges of finding a better balance between academic and athletic success. The book includes numerous personal stories and anecdotes from Dr. Adams, along with numerous former players and colleagues, including former George Mason standout Fowler Campbell. You can order your copy at www.ckasaveproject.org. From the main page, simply click CKA Save Project Services and order the Find the Balance book. For more information, contact Dr. Keith Adams by email at cka@ckasaveproject.org.
Welcome back to the Odd Coaches podcast. And oh my goodness, on this Find the Balance Friday episode, if you're a high school player, aspiring coach, you're learning so much, and we appreciate our guests for being here. So Lamar, I'm kind of scared about this, but it's my favorite part of our Find the Balance episodes. We're going to give you creative freedom, one of my favorite expressions, and tell your favorite without getting us off the air. Odd Coaches podcast stories on either myself, Coach Francis, or both of us. You have the floor, sir.
You know what? I'm gonna start. We're gonna keep it PG. I'm not trying to hurt anybody. But I know this.
Thank you.
You know, I go back and I remember the days of Coach Adams. This was paint branch days then, right? I mean, that was so before the Springbrook days, but when he was at Springbrook, and we were we were all top teams, everybody coaching in our respective areas. We were all in different regions. It's interesting, but I got into college coaching, and Coach Adams is one of, and I love with the book, and we'll get into that later on. Like that finding the balance. He was about putting his kids in the best position, making sure they could be successful when they were done. And I just remember I was at Central Connecticut State, and I'm recruiting a young man of his by the name of Lewis Brookins, and so I come down and I just fly in. This is one of those ones that I just flew in, and I called Coach Adams and told him I was coming in, and he was good about this. And I was like, I'm coming in, but then I was like, hey, I'm gonna be over there about. It must have been about 2:30, 3 o'clock, right around the time when they were getting out of school. Yeah, and so I called him. I said, hey, I'm on the way. He said, Coach, listen, I'm gonna be honest, and this is what I respected about him. He's like, yeah, okay, you've done a great job of recruiting Lewis. I just don't know if he wants to go away from home. That wasn't a big thing with him. And he was honest to the point that's why I respect about our relationship, because he could have been one, like, he was like, hey, you don't even have to come over here. Like, don't waste your time. And I was like, you know what? I've made this trip. I'm at least come over. And he waited for me with Lewis until I got there just to sit down and talk with him. But for Lewis to be honest, and he had kind of schooled Lewis on, hey, it's almost better. And I say this all the time. It's better for you to say, no, I'm not interested, and leave someone on, and then leaving someone on. And so he, at that time, what I liked was he helped Lewis, become an adult in that situation. And that moment I realized, like, we had already known each other. We were always friends, but that respect level went to another level, because he could have easily just, hey man, I need you to keep recruiting my kid, blah, 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 it might help, this and that. But he was like, nope, I want you to sit down with this kid. I want you to sit down with this coach, and you tell him your reasons of why you don't want to go up to Connecticut to go to school. I think he ended up choosing Maryland Eastern Shore at the time, which he was still close to home. And I respected that, because he not only helped that kid at that moment, but he helped that kid in life by basically saying, hey man, the best answer may be yes to somebody, but the second best answer is no. And being honest helps you out in the long run. And I really respect Coach Adams for that. I not wasting my time. Not wasting my time.
What I want to say about that situation, and it goes back to my respect for you, is you knew that this probably wasn't going to work out, but it was beyond basketball. And let me help this young brother. Here's how the business works. Here's how the situation is, because we all know each other. And years later, Lewis ended up, if I'm not mistaken, at Quinnipiac, which is not too far from where Central Connecticut was. He ended up transferring one place to another. But again, you were first class with all of that, and to give young men time. I don't know how much that is done anymore, but we'll talk about that a little bit later in this segment. So thank you for saving me, and I do remember that like it was yesterday. So my eyes bugged out. Didn't know where you were going with LB, but let us tell the story of Coach Franchise, and what are you thinking about with him?
I was just saying, French. There's a ton of stories with him that we're not going to talk about. That's you got Franchise and you got Mike Francis, and I think I'll talk about more of Mike Francis than Franchise. But no, like Mike, man, like just the relationship with Mike, and we were probably in my early days. It was after high school. I mean, we probably spent a ton of time on the phone. And this was when he was going into coaching college. I go back to, he felt this was a guy who was a head coach. I'm an assistant high school coach, but the one thing I say about not only you two guys, you were head coaches, but you never treated me like an assistant. Oh, it was like we were almost like we were on the same level. So even when I went to college, and I say this with Franchise, is I felt great because he was reaching out to me. I would talk to him about some things, but he was reaching out to me, asking me things about, college and his decision. What should he do? And so that's when people, there's a genuine relationship, because he didn't have to do those things. Like, he didn't have to call me and ask my opinion for anything. He was a head coach. And I just remember, talking with him. And another thing that I jump on this. This is one of the most fun is when he got sick. I was hurt because that was a brother of mine, and he didn't want to share it, and he kind of hid it at first, but then he eventually told it. But I thought, like, to that point, once he shared it and told me when he got sick, it made our bond that much closer, because it wasn't just coaching anymore. It became real life. It was no, we're brothers in this, not just in basketball, in life. And that's what I would say. Like, that situation, the time that he had gotten sick, and we didn't know, if he was going to make it or not. Like, that changed a lot for me, and I think it changed our relationship for the better, because it wasn't just sport anymore; it was life, and that's what I would say about Franchise.
Yep. I always look for advice from people who, they say you surround yourself with people smarter than you. And if you're the smartest person in the room, change your room. You know how that is. So I always looked up to you as someone who was very knowledgeable about it. Again, going back to your resume as a player, as a coach, and now it's not even a shock to see you are where you are. But that's why I asked you about the head coach. I asked you about the head coach question, because I can't see how you couldn't. I look at guys who got jobs now and over the course of our last 30 years, and I can't say you're not in the top 10% of them guys. You know what I mean? It's like why the hell not? Wouldn't you like if HBCU, your alma mater, like a mid-major school, like that you coach that, like Division II school, you coach that, Division I school, like how to me. You're a college coach. No, you're not a college coach. You're a college head coach. Let's put it that way. You're a college head coach. And it's just
that. I'll say this. It's interesting you say that. 3 years in a coaching, I'm at New Haven. And being in Connecticut, you said that earlier, like saying something. And I'm leaving. So I don't, the head coach, excuse me, Al Cyber, was like, have you talked to Debbie? She was the AD. And I was like, no. He said, well, you need to go tell her that you leave. I'm like, why wouldn't I just tell you? You're the head coach. I don't need to tell her. So I go in and I meet with her. And the one thing she says, she's like, why didn't you apply for this job a year ago? And I was like, I didn't think I was ready for this job. She said, listen, I've evaluated you for the last 9 months. I've watched practice. I watched how you dealt with kids. I watched you on the sideline coaching. You're more than ready to be a head coach. That was in 2006. But I didn't see myself as that. This is an athletic director. And I never thought about that again. She was like, listen, if anything comes up, if there's a job you need me to call from a head coaching standpoint, don't hesitate to call me. And, that was just kind of interesting. You say that. I just probably didn't put myself in position because I just didn't think. I always am I ready to be one? Am I ready to run a program? And like you said, I probably was. I mean, Jeff Jones spoke that to me one time. He's like, you remind me of myself. You're more head coach than you are assistant. But I didn't see that. You know what I'm saying? I didn't see that. He's like, you actually act more like a head coach than you do an assistant. And I was like, wow, did not realize that at all. So yeah.
That's why Willie wanted you to speak up. He knew
it. Yes, indeed. And speaking of that piece, there's a project that we have released, our Find the Balance book, and it's our Find the Balance Friday. And Coach Barrett has graciously gave us some time and has looked through the book. Any thoughts from your perspective that come to mind as you've looked at the Finding the Balance book? Anything you'd like to share or resonate with you to our audience?
Yeah, I mean, hey, like I said, I'm on this. So I'm gonna promote this. Coach Adams, hey, what's your address? Sent me the book. I'm always willing to learn, and I can remember when he started this, when he was going after his doctorate. He would call me, send me information, the survey. This is going back to those hey, can you get players? And so to see a lot of this in writing, to see, you kind of gave people, you realize this is a cheat code, right?
Yes, it is.
If you're any parent, if you're any coach, I'm reading the book and I'm going through the chapters and I'm telling my wife about this, and I'm like, this dude just gave the NCAA, he gave parents. You've given everyone the cheat code, of how to find the balance, what to do in order to be successful. That's what this book tells me. And the NCAA actually should be purchasing this book and making every kid that was interested. They did that for the NCAA tournament, Jesse Washington book on Coach Thompson. Every person should be reading this. This should be at schools. This should be at schools for kids and parents so they can know what to follow. That's what resonates with me is I'm like, yo, you gave out now. It costs you to buy the book, but you've given out way more valuable information than what this book is. And that's what I was. I mean, I'm looking at different chapters. I'm looking at different segments, and I'm like, wow, man, if you're a high school coach, you should be purchasing this. You should be purchasing Finding the Balance. That. There's no question that how good this is and how you can find balance in the academic and athletic side. And I don't think you realize how good you were. I mean, the information you had, the people you talk with, I don't think you understand how powerful this book can be. I don't think you understand that.
Man,
but that's what
appreciate
that's what resonates with me of basically, as a kid say cheat code on these games, or playing Kevin Durant has a cheat code. But then that's what you did. You allowed you probably did what people should have done a long time ago, and that's don't worry about. And I say this all the time in coaching as well. I mean, it's all about sharing knowledge, giving information. Stop holding back information.
Yeah.
And that's what this book shared information and gave out valuable knowledge. And that's what resonates with me with this book.
Man, I appreciate it.
The biggest thing we always talk about, and you'll hear in my family, because we pass it on generation, we tell our kids knowledge is to be shared. Don't hold it back. You can help them benefit. You can help someone else benefit. It's fine. Don't hold back the information. And that's the same thing what Coach is doing. Dr. Adams has put in place a guide that should be in every guidance office in high schools across the country. If you're a college coach, you got a compliance office, or you got any counselors, you got mentors, you got people who are now consultants for all these schools. You need to look. If your consultant don't have this, you need to give a call to Dr. Adams so he can set that up.
Man, I appreciate it. And Lamar, I'm glad I have this opportunity to say thank you to you, because in 2013, you were one of the people I told, hey, I'm leaving Hood College and I'm going after my doctorate, because there was one year where I was coaching college and working on my doctorate at the same time. And where a lot of people, and I talked about it in the book, a lot of people said, why are you leaving this career that you could have? There was something else there. And for guys like you to say, go ahead, and how can I help? So many people will say, hey, let me help you, and then never do. You were one of those people that I could go to and ask. And I'll tell you something else, you brought it up. The NCAA was very helpful. The Final Four is in Indy every 4 years, and I had the opportunity to sit and meet and talk to them and share the project and share the research I was doing. And where people, the NCAA as this big entity, gets a lot of negativity, but they're regular people trying to do a job, and they're underfunded and they're undervalued. So many people from there said, what information do you need? How can we be of service? So the fact that you said that and not even knew that Indy helped me with the project, that means a lot. And with that, I do want to ask you to share how people can follow you on social media, how people can get these Unmasked episodes, and our super producer, Kelly, will put it nicely on the screen so people can know what's going on. So tell us how we can follow you, and then we'll close with the current state of basketball, sir.
Yeah, it's so I'm on Twitter. I got 2 accounts at CRWLJB. I'm at Unmasked LJB. So there's 2 different accounts. One because of Unmasked, and one is a personal, but you can contact. They kind of somehow they're together. They are. Instagram, it's Coach Barrett is one, at Coach Barrett is one, and the other one is at Unmasked LJB. So it's always myself as an individual, and then I have a one that's also geared to Unmasked. Same thing with my LinkedIn. I'm huge on that just because it's so many professional people that I deal with, and then that's just Lamar Barrett on LinkedIn and Facebook, of course. You can find Lamar Barrett. Now it's 2 Lamar Barretts. It's interesting. I'll say about that. There's a Lamar Barrett that started at Longwood in 1989. And then there's a Lamar Barrett who started at Longwood in 2004. My wife thinks that's my son for some reason. She always throws it out. He played for Mike Hart, as we all know. Mike Hart was up in Rhode Island. But it's interesting. And we know each other. I knew that Lamar Barrett when he was a 9th grade or 10th grader at up at St. Andrew's School for Mike Hart. So, yeah, sometimes, for the most part, no one really gets us confused. We're 15 years apart from each other. But it's just ironic that 2 Lamar Barretts ended up at the same school early.
Right.
So, but yeah, you can find me on Facebook as well. But I'm on, like I said, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. You can find me. And then I also, unmaskedljb.com is my website. I do have a website where you can not only go and see, you can look at some of the videos or some of the shows, but you also can go on merchandise. There's different things I put up there as well. And it's also my YouTube channel. It's Unmasked, the Untold Stories of College Basketball. So those are a lot of those are. Yeah.
Well, our super producer will catch all of that and put it on the screen, so you don't have to worry about that. Well, while we got you here, there's a couple of quick hitters that we'd like to get your thoughts on. The first thing I want to ask you about is recruiting in terms of the transfer portal versus high school versus JUCO versus post-grad. And I want to kind of set this up to you. CKA are academic consultants, and we do charge. We charge a small fee, but we do charge. And I had an opportunity with my relationships to poll a lot of coaches in terms of how they're approaching recruiting. And I'd like to get your thoughts on recruiting now. So you have the floor, my friend. What are your thoughts on the current landscape of recruiting?
I mean, recruiting now, the number one thing now is recruiting your own player. That's the number one thing.
How many times you
like? There's no more days of you get a kid, he's on your campus. You know, the head coach more than anybody, like, he needs to have a relationship. It can't just always be assistant anymore, right? So that's the number one thing, is recruiting your own player all year long. And that may be, you know, there's some kids coaches that recruit the kid. He comes to campus. They might not have a conversation unless they want him coming to the office to, like, he's done something wrong. And that kid has that principal, like, he's going to the principal office mentality, and they always duck and don't want to come around. And then you don't even, like, when the parents come around, you can't even remember their names. Like, you can't do that, or like the key influences in their life. So, number one, you got to be able to recruit your own player. You have to recruit them all year long, right? Number two, and like, now it's changed so much. So I remember when I first got in, everyone used to come to the high school coach or the assistant coach, and you know, find out all the information, who we need to talk to. And the crazy thing about it was, parents weren't always as involved because they trusted the high school coach, assistant coach, whatever. They trusted somebody, right? Now, then it became, you know, they start spending way more time with the travel ball coach, the AAU coach. Then the trainer comes into play. Everyone wants to go with the trainer. So now they trust the trainer, because the trainer is saying, I can make your son a pro. I can make your son, man, I tell people all the time, if someone is telling you they can make somebody something, man, run in the other direction. I mean, you listen, people get better. People get better because they go and do the work. You can lay the foundation and say, this is what you can do to get to that, but you're not making anyone. So many people, that's one of the things that I saw it changing. You started, too many hands were in the pot from a recruiting standpoint. Like, when you start recruiting, like, sometimes the parent may not come on a visit, but the coach is bringing them. Like, that's always kind of been the case. Like, coaches might have to take them, the parent was working. But, like, showing up on a Zoom, or showing up like, you know, like, showing up, like, you tell them you don't have enough time to find out who is this person that my kid is talking to, like, what he's telling my kid. Or I just thought things started changing too much, and parents started trusting too many individuals because they thought that person had the best interest for their kid. And the high school coach almost got eliminated a little bit.
Yes.
They were just going by the high school coach. They didn't even want to talk to him no more. Like, he didn't have no say. But you say that is, and that's why I think things started changing. And then now it's even, you know, once, you know, and I listened to Jay Billis and all those guys, and they were like, oh, you know, how are you letting these kids, they can't transfer, you know, they don't need to sit out. You know, like, coaches can move from, I mean, they put all the power. These are guys, Jay Billis and them were time on it. Like,
oh my gosh,
they putting the power in all the kids' hands. We should be paying these. But I'm all for making sure these kids have money. Keith, I know you've done some stuff on that, but when you got kids, if you're giving kids all this money, what they already getting, like, I know kids that were getting, like, you know, close to 8,000 in Pell, 9,000 in Pell. They getting cost of attendance check. They get, like, So by the time you're looking at it, they got $13,000, $14,000, $15,000.
Mm-hmm.
You know this. We all know this. As a kid growing up, once you got $20 in your pocket, you're burning it. You don't think they're burning 13,000? They're not.
Yeah.
So you can give them the money, but you're not teaching them how to use the money. That's why I think the NCAA they need to step in and educate these young men on, like, you're getting this money, so we need to educate you, right? Same thing if I look at a guy like Zion Williamson who's going to Duke for a year. Why is he sitting in a pottery class? Why is he taking a gym class? No, you need to be in a marketing. You need to be in a management. You need to be like finance class to understand. Like, those guys don't need to be wasting their time in some bullshit class. Excuse my language. I don't know. But they don't need to be.
Don't worry, Mike does it every day.
They need to be learning about life. What it's like when you come into $20 million, right? So now I go into how it's really changed. Recruiting. You look at it, and I think we was talking about this. So you have kids can leave right away and play right away. So of course, it don't even matter what level you are at anymore. One thing that college coaches, that the college game as a freshman, kids never understood this. And I used to always say this. That's why I thought my players had success. Our players had success when they went to the college level. Treat your senior year in high school the way you practice, like the way this is what people understand. Because practice and playing in games are totally different in high school.
Yes.
When you get to high school, like, so my senior year, I'm like, listen, the way that you're supposed to play in games, that's how you got to practice as a freshman. It's going to move up. So you got to be every day, you should be thinking about you as a college freshman, not as a high school senior. And so, like, that's what people don't understand. So now that's why the college seniors slid down a little. I mean, the high school seniors slid down because you want guys who know how to play hard or compete at a high level. And it doesn't matter what level you're at in college basketball. If you got a year under your belt in a program, you understand it's tough, hard every day. Coaches want that transfer that can play right away, right? So that's why the transfer portal becomes big, and they picking guys out of the transfer portal because they want a guy who can play right away. Then they go and say, well, let's take the JUCO transfer. He's older, he's stronger, he's bigger. Let's take him. You know what I'm saying? And then third, let's go and take the transfer that he's good, but let's sit him out for a year because he needs to be on track academically. And or like we may have a really good team and he's not going to play as much as we think he is. So let's like bring him in and sit him. So now that's number 3. Now you go to number 4. Let's take the kid who is going to move up from Division 2 or Division 3 or NAIA that can play right away. Yeah. He's in a program. He knows how to play. He's going to
play.
Right? And then number 5, I'm going to the post-grad kid because he's a year removed from high school. He's probably away from home. He's learned how to adjust a little bit more so than a high school kid. And he's gone through tough times. So let's take him from a physical standpoint. And then the high school senior becomes like he's, it's like, oh, wow, he's a high school senior. Unless you're one of the elite of the elites or it's just somebody that they love, man, you in trouble. And I've spoken to this at camps. Or like I spoke to kids about that, like, yo, it's not your fault. It's not your fault. It's that you fell down because you guys have no idea what it takes to be a collegiate athlete. You know, and they want older, stronger, bigger, faster right away.
Yep, exactly.
Go ahead, Mike.
It's relatable to see that certain coaches in certain programs, yours, Coach Adams, myself, how kids come out of high school ready to play for college because we treat it as such. You treat it as such, and you constantly remind them of that. Like, hey, this shit ain't gonna fly. Like, let's prepare now, you know?
So, Lamar, you brought up several points. And again, Kelly, we are going to extend this episode because it's like a masterclass having you here. One of the things that I've run into with the players that I work with and just try to advise are kids who transfer from high school to high school, and then they get to college and they transfer from college to college, and their credits are pot. And a college career, as we've talked about over our 30 years, is 100 to 150 games if you're lucky, and then what? Because you're not going to the league. So how are college coaches looking at the high school kid who goes from team to team, program to program? Give me your thoughts on that, because I think your lens is a critical lens to listen to that from.
Well, if you're Kevin Durant, if you're Mike Beasley, that's a different story. You know what I'm saying? Like when you're dealing with those guys. But it is people, like, you look at it. I had a conversation with I had to sit down with one of my good friends, family. Like, he wanted me to kind of explain that to more so to his wife than to him. He knew, and how coaches look at it. Because at the time I was coaching, like, how we look at the transfer. Like, and I was like, you know what? When you go from one school to another, okay, that happens. Like, I mean, that's not a bad thing. But when you go from one school to another, and then you might go to another, like, that's when guys started, like, looking at, like, yo, he's like, it's a pattern. Like, if you left multiple or if you left multiple schools and you left multiple teams, there's a pattern. And the numbers tell you, and I know, keep your numbers that, like, you're probably gonna leave here. Yep. The first time adversity hits, he's not playing. Mm-hmm. It's not and I always say this, keeping it, if when you involved in schools, if all three don't go together, it's no way it's working out. It better be the athletics, the academic, and social. And those three have to go together. And if they don't, because the first thing that happens is, if you're struggling academically, that means you can't get on the court. Like, you're probably not going to get on the court, and you're probably going to party a lot, right? If you're partying too much, it affects athletics and academics. And then, when I say, and if you not playing basketball, the first thing that people say is, man, you better than that dude. Like, why?
I hate that.
Right? They're not even realizing that you can't remember one play. You blow every defensive assignment. You know what I'm saying? You turn the ball over every 3 plays. They don't see into that. And so now, when you're struggling athletically and you're hearing all of this, you don't want to come out of your dorm room, or you don't want to be in the dining hall or the caf, because everybody questioning why you're not playing. And then, like, you don't want to do stuff grade-wise. You don't want to do any schoolwork. So I tell people, man, if all three of them not going together, you're probably not going to be successful. It's going to be very rare. And that's what people don't understand, that realm of it either. Like, when you're choosing a place, like, when stuff not going well with basketball, can I be here? Is this good for me? Am I going to party too much, or am I going to just bored to death? So all that stuff comes into play, Keith.
That's the main thing I tell all my kids. Same thing with my son. We pick a school that you can be at if you were not playing sports. Once sports practice is over, do you see yourself being okay with the other students? Is the campus good for you? Is the area? And I always tell, like, a story with AJ where, Notre Dame and Naval Academy were my 2 choices. That's all I ever wanted for my kids. If my son can go to Notre Dame, or if he can go to Naval Academy, we're going to be good. Fortunately, we had a lot of choices, but visiting Notre Dame, I just took my picture in front of Touchdown Jesus. You know what I mean? Like, that's my favorite school. He bought me the jacket the year before for Christmas. And we walk up to the parking lot, and he said, Dad, I'm not going to school here. And I was like, inside, I was crying like I don't know what, bro. We had just met with Charlie Weiss. Everything looked good. You know what I mean? Sat next to Jimmy Clausen. You know what I mean? Had a nice day. Everything was great. And he told me that. I was crying inside. That was a long-ass 12-hour ride, boy.
Lamar, one last question for you. And again, thank you. And Kelly will be able to get his kids some nice stuff with this episode. I want your thoughts on NIL. CKA is a big fan of free market. We're a big fan of you have to make decisions. So put yourself in a position to be informed, educated, and so forth. And yes, it was one of the reasons, why I wrote Found the Balance, because you're going to have the opportunity to make as many good or bad decisions as you want to. That's called life. So tell me your thoughts on NIL as we wrap up. And that will be the last topic we get to with you. And again, this is like a masterclass today. What are you thinking about with NIL?
You know what? I think it's good for some, but not all. And in this business, we know what drives everything now is social media is huge. It's not even going to be the one, because we all know, people think because this is what people are thinking, oh, the NCAA makes all this money. I mean, they don't realize football has its own entity, college football, and then it's all the other sports, and men's basketball, and somewhat to a women's basketball is taking care of all the other sports. So that's people don't realize that part. They just see these big money. So now the NIL comes into play, and it's the people who get the deals are the ones who social media likes, because it's all about I want to associate myself with somebody who can bring money to my business. I mean, that's what it's about. So you got individuals who it could be there's people with 60, with 100,000 likes or followers that might not even be playing, but they got their social media. It's the guy who's the most popular on campus or popular around the town. Those are the people wow, they get money. But then you got guys who are might be averaging 18 or 20 a game at a mid-major. Okay, who are they? Are they selling the thing? So I don't think it's good for some, not good for all. And I don't think that's how it was set up. It was supposed to be most athletes were supposed to get money. Or they, have money in their pocket, but I don't think it's for everyone. And that's where, is it, the NIL is set up where if you're the better player, if you're the most popular person, you're going to get the money. But the guy that's not popular or doesn't play, doesn't get anything, but he works his ass off in practice just as much as the other guy. So I like it because they're doing that, but I still think it's the haves versus the have-nots a lot of times. And I would like to see where, it could be if you're doing a team, if you're doing a team portion, now the question is, how do you break that up? Are you giving the star player 20%, this guy 10, breaking it down? I don't know. I like the kids are getting money in their pocket, but there's a risk that's going to come with this, and I think it's going to hurt some people because you're associating yourself with things that don't line up with your with you or your character. And the reason why I say that is I had a good friend of mine. His son is at a Power 5. We were actually teammates for 1 year. My senior year, he was a freshman. He redshirted, but his son is at a Power 5, and he called me and asked me what my thoughts were. And I was like, well, what does he want to do if he doesn't become a professional? And he told me his thoughts. And when he said that, I said, well, you need to line yourself up to set yourself up once you're done playing. That's what the NLI should be about. It should be about aligning yourself up with people that can take care of you. You're going to have a job down the road, instead of worrying about the short term, just getting money in your pocket. And that's what my whole thing is. Align yourself up, align yourself up with people that can help you long term, not just in the short term.
Coach, you have the last word on this before we bow out, sir.
I think it's the most important thing about it, and NIL shouldn't be set. I don't know. Maybe, like Lamar saying, if you put it in an interest, like something, an interest gaining account for kids, like if you're smart enough to do that as parents or whatever. So when they leave college, they're set up. You know what I mean? Like, you don't know what's going to happen after college. You don't know what the career is going to look like. So, I mean, if you could set it up to where you come out of college, you don't get drafted or anything like that, but you got enough money to get through a year or two with rent and things like that as you figure it out, or you try to get a job and you hit the real working world, or maybe even just to travel. One of the biggest things my son wanted to do was, see the world. He's going to Rome, he's going to Greece, all that. Well, it's the same, but he went all backpacking through Europe. He's seen things that he definitely wasn't going to see on my dime. On my project as he was not going, I'm not going to see the Coliseum, that you're just not going to do that. So those kind of things kids can do when they come out. I do agree with him on trying to set it up for a long-term thing instead of right now, because you spend all that money now. What do you have when you don't get drafted? Then you're setting yourself up for problems.
All right. Well, fans, this has just been super enlightening. I hope you got something out of this. I want to thank Lamar for giving us extended time. So on behalf of my tag team partner, Coach Mike Francis, I'm Dr. Adams saying thank you for listening and or watching the Odd Coaches podcast, and we will see you on the sidelines. Till next time, take care.
We hope you enjoyed today's show. The Odd Coaches podcast drops new episodes every Tuesday through Friday on most weeks. Make sure you subscribe to the Odd Coaches podcast on Apple Music, iHeartRadio, Podbean, Spotify, and YouTube. Follow the Odd Coaches podcast on Twitter and Instagram at Odd Coaches. Follow Dr. Adams on Twitter and Instagram at CKA Save Project. In addition, follow Coach Mike Francis on Twitter and Instagram at Coach Franchise, spelled Coach Franchize. For more information about the CKA Save Project, please visit them on the web at www.ckasaveproject.org. See you next time on the Odd Coaches Podcast.